So here's the thing, Netflix thought they were getting a royal cash cow. Instead, they got Meghan Markle in a chef's hat pretending to be Pamela Anderson. No joke, this is where it all starts to unravel. The streaming giant was banking on with Love Meghan being this charming, feel-geared follow-up to her controversial docu-series, something different like creative, but behind the scenes it's turned into a complete circus, and not just because of the awkward moments or weird laugh tracks we're talking about. Full-blown plagiarism investigations, deleted footage worth millions, and XX low-key freaking out. To be fair, it wasn't always this messy. Netflix gave Meghan some space, maybe too much. The idea was to let her have creative control and shape her own brand. They didn't expect her to copy entire lines from another celebrity's cooking show, but that's exactly what happened. Pamela Anderson's Cooking with Love might not be a household obsession, but it had its own loyal fan base, and those fans were the first to notice something was off. Meghan didn't just borrow the vibe, she replicated the look, the lines, and even the way Pamela laughs, like frame-by-frame style mimicry. It took a while before anyone inside Netflix flagged it, but once they started comparing episodes side by side, it was undeniable. Meghan wasn't just inspired by Pamela's aesthetic, she'd literally shown up to set wearing identical outfits, same hat, same color palette even. Matching accessories, episode 3, episode 5, episode 8, all near perfect copies of Pamela's style, and the dialogue, let's just say someone clearly thought changing a few words was enough to make it original. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Now here's where it gets worse. Netflix did what any studio would do. They launched a full internal investigation, and once they started digging, it didn't stop at Pamela Anderson. Meghan had also borrowed recipes from Guy Fieri, not adapted, not referenced, straight up copied. Multiple dishes featured on her show had first aired years ago on Guy's various programs, even down to the quirky names and food descriptions. One producer apparently said it felt like watching a Meghan Markle parody of Food Network with none of the fun. The fallout was immediate. Netflix pulled the plug on all affected scenes, which by the way made up a huge chunk of the second season. We're talking episodes 2, 6, and 7 all needing reshoots, and the worst part, none of the original footage could be salvaged because it was so tightly integrated that meant entire episode arcs were destroyed. Cost around $20 million, zero gone just like that, and that's not an exaggeration. Internal memos confirmed it, and Netflix now in full-blown crisis mode, scrambled to fix things. Their plan: cut down on scripted scenes and let Meghan improvise during reshoots to save time. Yes, they really thought letting her go off script might somehow speed things up. You can imagine how well that went. Improvising in a cooking show is one thing if you're naturally charismatic, but Meghan, let's just say her idea of natural dialogue made things more awkward than endearing. Even insiders are saying it's like watching someone perform lines from a high school play with no rehearsal. And yet, despite all this mess, Meghan isn't backing down. She's actively lobbying for a third season. She's apparently been in constant contact with Netflix higher-ups, especially Ted Sarandos. Ted's been known to be a bit more sympathetic, or at least patient with her. But Greg Peters, the other CEO, totally done. He wants her gone. Word is Meghan's been pestering both the board and Ted directly, trying to lock down another contract extension. She wants season 3 greenlit like yesterday. The audacity, right after losing creative control, tanking a second season, and costing the company tens of millions. She still believes she deserves more. It's giving pure delusion. But what's really fueling the chaos is the internal divide at Netflix. Some execs believe cutting ties is the only option. Others are worried about how that'll look publicly, especially since, like it or not, Meghan still has a solid base of fans, and a very loud one. That meanwhile, users are bailing. Netflix is losing subscribers left and right. People are jumping to Prime, HBO Max, and even Peacock just to escape the drama and the price hikes. And surprising number of complaints have cited one common theme: they are sick of seeing Meghan Markle's face every time they open the app. The home screen is flooded with her image, and the association with failed content is starting to wear people out. This entire thing has become a PR nightmare. Domino effect of bad decisions, worse execution, and a public figure who simply won't quit. What started as a glossy content deal has turned into Netflix's messiest creative scandal in years, and all the while Meghan is still treating it like a campaign to prove she's a misunderstood visionary. At this point, you've got to ask, how far is Netflix willing to go before they finally pull the plug? And here's a kick of the clock is ticking. Our shoots had to be done by mid to late July. Post-production edits Marketing all of that has to wrap before September if they want any chance of salvaging this thing 3 months. That's all they got, and the pressure is mounting fast. Netflix internal team was practically split into two camps, those who wanted to quietly bury with love Meghan and pretend it never existed, and those who thought they could salvage the show by turning it into a redemption arc for Meghan. The idea was that if she could own up to some of the mistakes and position herself as misunderstood, they might be able to spin the press and save their investment, but that only works if the person in question is willing to play along. And Meghan, she's doubling down instead. Rather than acknowledging the mountain of evidence Netflix unearthed, Meghan's been brushing it off like it's all just a smear campaign. Insiders say she's been telling close contacts that jealous executives are trying to sabotage her work, and that she's being targeted because she dares to be bold. The irony is thick because while she's busy playing victim, the legal team at Netflix has been combing through every episode frame by frame, making sure they're not liable for intellectual property theft. That's not the kind of stuff they take lightly, not with the Pamela Anderson and Guy Fieri camps, both reportedly aware and not happy. It's not just a couple of scenes either. Some of the recipes that were lifted from Guy Fieri shows weren't even edited or adapted. They were presented with the same ingredients, the same process, and even the same quirky names. One dish, originally titled Fire Fiesta Nachos, appeared word for word on Meghan's show as Spicy Love Nachos. The script had nearly identical commentary down to the cheesy one-liners. A former showrunner even admitted off record that the resemblance was too close to deny. That's when Netflix started deleting footage, not just shelving it, but actually removing it from their editing servers. They didn't want a single bit of copied content left in circulation. Producers were instructed to reconstruct scenes from scratch, and actors were brought back under emergency contracts for reshoots. But because of Meghan's involvement and insistence on keeping her creative freedom, the new strategy became this bizarre improvisational approach. Writers were sidelined, directors were told to go with the flow. It was chaos on set. And then came the leaked footage. Yep, some behind-the-scenes clips from those improved sessions found their way online. You can probably guess what they look like: long pauses, awkward interactions, Meghan forgetting lines and rambling about self-love and spirituality while trying to fry an egg. The internet pounced, memes exploded, hashtags like Meghan cooks disaster, and Netflix flop fest trended for days. What was supposed to be a quick recovery turned into an even bigger embarrassment. Meanwhile, Netflix's top brass was scrambling to limit the damage. Ted Sarandos, known for being the more laid-back CEO, reportedly tried to mediate the situation. He held several closed-door meetings with Meghan, trying to convince her to follow a more traditional format, even offering her an external consultant to help develop a consistent tone for the remaining episodes. Meghan refused. She wanted her authenticity to shine through, even if that meant the content was unpredictable and borderline incoherent. Greg Peters wasn't having it. He was already skeptical about the partnership from the start, and this entire debacle confirmed his instincts. According to sources inside the boardroom, has been pushing for the company to cut all future deals with Meghan and let the current contract run its course without renewal. And considering the budget overruns and lost footage, most of the finance department is on his side. But even as her Netflix empire crumbles, Meghan keeps pushing for season 3. She's been calling up producers directly, bypassing protocol, offering to host new pitch meetings herself. She even suggested making the next season more interactive, whatever that means. Something about viewers submitting their own recipes and stories for her to respond to on screen. It sounded like a desperate attempt to stay involved, even as her influence behind the scenes continues to shrink. And here's the catch: Ted hasn't officially shut it down. Has been dodging questions, leaving her pitches unanswered, neither confirming nor denying whether season 3 is even on the table. Some say is waiting to see if the damage can be contained. Others think is stalling just to avoid more drama. Either way, the longer the silence, the more chaos brews inside the company. One thing that everyone agrees on: Meghan has completely lost the trust of the creative department, editors, showrunners, Writers, they've all expressed frustration with how unstructured and unpredictable the process has become. Some have asked to be reassigned to other projects, others are just riding it out, waiting for the whole ordeal to be over. What was once seen as a high-profile career-boosting assignment has turned into something most creatives want to distance themselves from. And time isn't on anyone's side, with a reshoot schedule packed and editing barely started. The team is on a tight clock to deliver something, anything before the fall, but morale is low and the content is shaky. If Netflix manages to pull this off, it'll be nothing short of a miracle. Netflix marketing team is in crisis mode. Normally by now there'd be teaser trailers, promo posters, and strategic social media campaigns building hype. Instead, they are sitting on unfinished episodes and a PR disaster with no clear release date internally. They've dubbed this project the Meghan mess, and nobody wants their name officially tied to it. Some teams are even repurposing at slots originally reserved for "With Love, Meghan" to promote completely unrelated content just to avoid further backlash. What's wild is that Netflix isn't even sure what kind of show it's releasing anymore. Is it a cooking show, a lifestyle vlog, or royal drama? In disguise, the tone has changed so many times that even the editors can't keep track. One segment feels like a Food Network special, and the next feels like a therapy session. At one point, there was an entire monologue about self-healing while Meghan tried to make vegan brownies and forgot to turn on the oven. That scene alone sparked so much internal debate that it was cut, restored, then cut again. It's chaos with no compass. Meghan, on the other hand, is still convinced the final product will blow people away. According to someone close to the project, she's been telling staff that the show will set a new standard and that the public will finally understand her vision. She's even been brainstorming awards categories she thinks the show might qualify for. Yes, actual awards. Apparently she mentioned best lifestyle format and even floated the idea of a documentary Emmy if they lean more into her personal narrative behind the scenes. Though executives are prepping for damage control, the legal team has drafted statements just in case more plagiarism claims surface. There's a full PR rollout plan for unforeseen delays and alternate marketing copy if the show needs to be rebranded entirely. Some are even considering releasing it under a different name to create distance from the original disaster. One working title that floated around was Reimagining Meghan, which got laughed out of the room. What's really bothering Netflix is the money, not just what's been lost, but what's been wasted. The $20 million 0 cents in unusable footage was only part of it. The cost of rushed reshoots, extended studio time, new legal clearances, and staff turnover has inflated the budget beyond anything they projected. It was supposed to be a sleek, modest production. Instead, it's burned through more cash than some of the hit drama, and now they are staring down a potential release that might not even break even. Meanwhile, outside the Netflix bubble, the public sentiment is shifting. Meghan's approval rating, yes, they measure, that is in decline. Once hailed as a brave outsider challenging the royal system, she's now increasingly seen as someone out of touch, overly controlling, and lacking originality. It's not just tabloids and the more even previously sympathetic outlets are starting to question her credibility, and fans, many feel duped. They expected elegance and insight, not rehashed recipes and second-hand dialogue. Even Hollywood starting to back away. A few guest stars who had filmed cameos early on have asked for their scenes to be removed. One publicist reportedly warned Netflix that their client doesn't want to be associated with the project in its current state. That client had filmed a light-hearted segment baking cookies with Meghan, but now worries it'll be cut into a cringeworthy mess. That's the level of concern now. People are worried appearing in the show might hurt their brand. Despite all this, the board is divided on how to wrap things up. Few are pushing for a quiet release with no fanfare. Just dump the season on the platform, let it sink or swim on its own. Others argue for at least some minimal promotion, hoping controversy will spark curiosity. There's also discussion about whether to include a disclaimer at the start of each episode to acknowledge the changes and reshoots. That idea is controversial. Meghan would never agree to it, but Netflix might not give her a choice. What's clear is that this project has turned into a cautionary tale. What began as a high-profile partnership with a globally known figure has become one of the most chaotic productions in Netflix's history. No one wants to say it publicly, but behind closed doors there's one shared feeling: regret for giving Meghan Unchecked creative control, regret for not stepping in sooner, and regret for tying so much of their brand image to someone who simply wasn't ready for this kind of responsibility. Now the clock is ticking. Final edits are due soon. Marketing teams are prepping trailers they are not sure will ever be approved. Executives are watching subscriber numbers more closely than ever, praying this project doesn't trigger another wave of cancellations. And Meghan, she's still pitching new ideas, some even more bizarre than this one, where it is she's thinking of a travel show next. But for now, everyone at Netflix just wants to survive this storm, release the show, contain the fallout, and move on. Whether with love, Meghan, it ends up being a quiet footnote or a full-blown pop culture disaster, that's up to the audience.